Ah, that's trouble. But it's nothing to worry about if you know how to execute trouble shots. And after this edition of the Game Improvement video series, you'll know how to handle trouble shots. Besides, trouble shots are only trouble if you don't know how to play them.
The PGA Tour Partners Club presents the Game Improvement Video Series. Developed exclusively for members, this video series features instruction from the game's top players. The very best from the PGA Tour reveal their blueprint for better golf. In this edition, former Masters champion Craig Stadler gives his tips for mastering trouble shots. The goal of this edition in the Game Improvement video series is to provide members with tips and techniques that will lower scores by eliminating the big numbers, doubles and triples. Coming up, Craig Stadler demonstrates his approach to dealing with those pesky trouble shots and how to fight off a disastrous hole. Also, former lead instructor of the Nicholas Flick Golf School in Florida, Martin Hall, will build upon Craig's tips, and together they will demonstrate how to master the trouble shot, including Martin's specialty, how to play on the slopes. But first, many club members are very familiar with our trouble shot expert. Most of you know him as the Walrus. I'm sure you will agree that his 20-plus year career on the PGA Tour is one of golf's most colorful, and that this champion is also one of the most popular personalities in all of sports. Many have said that to truly conquer the game of golf, you must control the flight of the ball, as well as your emotions. But those guys must have never met Craig Stadler. With the Walrus, what you see is what you get. There's usually very little doubt what's on Craig's mind.
It hasn't changed much over the years. I was pretty much a maniac in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. My own worst enemy by far. And I imagine there were a few days where the guys that play with me didn't necessarily have a real good time doing it. But I learned to manage my game and manage myself a bit better, and I still get hot with the best of them. There's no doubt about it. But I say you don't really have to watch anything other than me to figure out if it's a decent or bad shot. You know, I really haven't. In the last 15 years, I haven't changed much.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jim Murray once described Craig as resembling an unmade bed, and the envy of every guy who wanted to order his pie a la mode. And that's part of what makes Craig such a popular player. He's the same guy you play with on the weekend. Shirt untucked, not exactly clean-shaven, and as we've seen, a little emotional about wayward shots. But there is one notable exception. For the last 20 years, Craig Stadler has been one of the most consistent players on the PGA Tour. He's never finished lower than 66th on the money list, earning more than $7 million. In his late 20s, Craig won 8 times over a 5-year span, including 1 green jacket. Into his 30s, Craig was always near the top of the money list, but the winner's circle eluded him. And it wasn't until he claimed a playoff victory at the 1991 Tour Championship that Craig would once again win with regularity.
Obviously, it helped with confidence. As you say, I hadn't won in 7 years, and I've won since then 4 other tournaments, which isn't great in 6 years, but considering I went blank for 6-7 years, I got to the point where I was almost winning one a year, which was pretty good. I won World Series in '92, and then San Diego '94, LA Open in '96. So I threw one in Argentina in there somewhere in '95 or something. But you know, I just kind of proved to myself I could still win, or win again. And you know, I pretty much have since then. I haven't with real consistency, but hell, I'm getting old too.
Dreadful lie, only one sensible course of action here. Get that puppy back out on the short grass. How would you do that? Take a really lofted club, open the club face just slightly, hold it tight because the rough will twist it otherwise. You want to put that ball back in your stance a little bit and then just thump down as hard as you can. It may go left, and the best you can do is try and get the ball out like that. So remember, if you've hit it in the rough, pay the penalty for the mistake you've made. Don't be greedy.
When it comes to turning a bad situation into a good one, Seve Ballesteros is known as one of golf's all-time great escape artists. And now, Craig has a few practical tips for playing from the rough.
Although most of you members are pretty good golfers, it's inevitable that every now and then we're going to end up in the rough. With this shot here, we've got about 165 yards. We have two options. We have a hazard in front of the green about 40 yards. We have a bunker, which is really the least of our worries. We're either going to try to get the ball on the green or short of the hazard. And that is going to depend strictly on the lie we have. Normally in the rough like this, we've got some pretty heavy rough right here. In this case here, we've drawn a very good lie. We've drawn what we call a flyer lie, where there's really nothing behind the ball, just a few blades of grass. What that grass is going to do is insert between the club face and the ball, creating less spin. The ball is going to carry farther. So if this is the case, if we happen to get lucky and draw a lie like this, we can go ahead and take a 6-iron or a 5-iron, about the club you'd hit a normal shot from, and go ahead and have a go at the green. We'll hit the same shot you would from the fairway. Your setup will be the same. Ball will be about the middle of your stance if you're using a 7 or a 6 or a 5-iron. And we're going to get probably another 8 or 10 yards carry off this shot just because of the grass behind the ball. But it's a perfect lie, so if this is the case, if you draw a lie like this with that hazard, I'd go ahead and take a shot at the green, because you should be able to get there pretty easily. Hoo-ah! Now, if we're not so fortunate off the tee and we happen to end up in a little heavier grass, where the ball's sitting down, as this one is, now we've limited our options. Now there's no chance we can get over the water. We've got probably 125, 130 yards to carry. With all this grass behind the ball, all it's going to do is turn the club head over, hit the ball down. We're not going to be able to get it in the air. So what do we do here? Now, you can try to muscle a 5 or a 4-iron out, but the odds are that I'm not going to get it over the water, and probably the chances of most of your members getting over the water are very slim. So what we want to do here is just take a wedge, go ahead and, not necessarily take a shot penalty, but make sure we get the ball out in the fairway and try to get a good wedge up on the green, get it up and down for 4. Now we're limited to one shot we want to hit. We want to just get this ball in the fairway. That's our only goal. Two things we want to avoid. One, we want to make sure we get it over the rough in front of us and to the fairway. 2, we want to make sure that we don't take too much club. And if the ball happens to come out well, we go through the fairway into the rough or maybe even into the hazard. So as I say, we got about 80, 90 yards we want to hit it. It's not a very good lie. Just take a wedge. Make sure you make a nice full swing. Enough to get it over the rough, out in the fairway, but then again, not so much club as we hit it across the fairway into the rough on the other side.
And now, on the slopes with Martin Hall. First, Martin deals with the difficult downhill lie.
In the upcoming show, I'm going to be talking about the 4 shots that you have to play from an uneven stance. Now, those 4 shots are ball above your feet, ball below your feet, uphill lies, and this one, the downhill lie. Now, we're dealing with this one first because this is by far the most difficult shot you have to play off an uneven lie. And the mistake so many people make, and I know I've done it enough times in my career, is to try and lift the ball in the air. Well, if you do that, you'll get the ground too soon, the ground gets in the way, you'll fluff it, or perhaps you'll hit it thin and blade it. Well, as you'll see with all 4 of those shots I mentioned, setup is everything. So let's deal with the setup for the downhill lie. Now the setup involves getting the spine perpendicular to the slope. This to me is very similar to skiing. When I went skiing, it frightened me to death to lean down the slope, but those of you who ski know the only way to stay upright is to keep leaning down the slope, and that's what we've got to do here. You must set yourself up to lean down the slope so that your club can travel level to the ground. Now, when you do that, realize something's going to happen. Realize the effective loft of the shot is going to change. And so your club selection probably needs to change. Let me demonstrate. If I put this lie angle tool on the club and I show you, this is my pitching wedge here, I show you my pitching wedge on a level lie, that would be about the angle that the ball would leave the club at. Now if I make it a downhill lie, see that angle changes dramatically. The ball would come out much lower, it would run more. Now you need to factor that in with your club selection. Right here I'm about 120 yards from the green. For me that's normally a 9-iron. But because I'm on a downhill lie, I'm not going to take the 9, I'm going to take the pitching wedge. Because the pitching wedge, shall we say, becomes a bit more like a 9-iron because of the downhill lie. So the ball will come out lower, will go a bit farther. I'm going to arrange myself so I'm leaning down the slope. The club can follow the slope. Remember, this is death. You mustn't do that. In fact, the great Henry Cotton, British Open champion a number of times, he used to actually recommend even walking down the slope after you'd hit it. Now that may be a little severe when you play, but I think that would be good for practice. So here we go. Spine perpendicular, the club's going to come out lower than normal. Keep in front of the ball, swing down the slope. Now that ball came out extremely low for a pitching wedge, but it's almost on the green. So as you go through this tape, remember, alter your setup to suit the lie of the golf ball. Try and keep the feel of the swing the same, but alter your setup, and that should help you.
When golfers stray from the fairway, they run the risk of having to alter their swing. Next, Craig's advice for the restricted backswing.
Okay, members, the problem we have here is we've got a tree obstructing our backswing. As our line of the direction we want to play is right out here into the fairway to get a shot to the green, and that's going to be right on this line here, so we're going to come right into this tree. There's a few things we want to think about here. First of all, we want to take a few clubs with us because we are in the rough, and if you're parking the cart over here somewhere, you really have no idea if you're stuff this thick or real thin. So the club selection can vary by easily 3-4 clubs depending on your lie in the rough. We got a pretty decent lie here, so I'm going to go ahead and take a 6-iron as opposed to the 7/8 that I brought. Now with a normal swing, we're going to come right back here into this tree, and we'd have to stop here, really have no power to get the ball out of this rough and out into the fairway. So what we want to do is create a swing to where we're going to take it back more inside, keeping the club under the tree, and we can come around and hit it and make a pretty much full swing, 3/4 swing anyway, get the ball up in the air and out of the rough. Again, we want to make sure that we're set up for the opening we're trying to hit the shot through, which is out towards the fairway. Don't want to be set up over here and come this way. You're defeating your purpose, or set up way to the right and have to come. Then we're going to catch the tree coming back across this way. So what you members want to do is take enough club. Again, the club you choose depends totally on the lie. If the ball's sitting way down in the rough, you need some more loft to get it up through the grass. If you have a fairly tight lie where there's not much grass, then you can take a little longer clubs. You don't have anything obstructing the club coming into the ball, no grass behind it. But alignment we want to set up right where we're trying to hit the shot. Since we're going to be so flat, we're going to catch the ball with the toe coming across and probably going to hook the shot, so we want to start a little to the right, allow for that right to left spin of the ball. A ball position is going to be back in my stance again because I don't want to get the ball up in the air. I don't have the liberty of coming up high in the backswing and catching it on the upswing and the follow through. I got to be low and keep it under this tree. So I want to have the ball in my backswing so I can catch it here and generate that hook spin to get it out to the fairway. Keeping it low inside, ball plate on the back of our stance. We just keep everything nice and low.
When surrounded by trees or bushes and faced with a restricted swing, sometimes the best course of action is to just get it back in play. Trying to pull off a miracle shot can have disastrous results. Now, how to cope with a restricted follow-through.
Well, partners, we've got a problem here where we have a restricted follow-through with this tree. So there's 3 or 4 key points that we want to make sure that we determine before we hit this shot. First of all is club selection. The problem is being in the rough here, we want to grab a club that's got a little loft on it because we're not going to be able to get it out of the grass. We want to keep it under the tree, but yet get it out to the fairway where we can play our next shot to the green. So one thing you want to remember, always bring 2 or 3 clubs with you. Most of you are playing cart golf, so you don't want to come over here, have your cart 50 yards away and have a 5-iron where you need to hit an 8-iron. So bring 2 or 3 clubs. In this case, I've got a 7, an 8, and a 9-iron. I'm going to probably take an 8-iron because I do want to get the ball up and over this rough, but I also want to keep it under these trees in front of me and just get it out to the fairway. So we're going to take the 8-iron. A couple things we want to make sure we do. Ball position is very important. We don't want to get the ball up in the front of our stance because that means we have to catch it on the upswing and the follow through, which means we're going to come right into this tree, and if we have to stop short of the tree, catching the ball in the upswing is going to give us no power, and we're not going to get it out of the rough. We need to get it out about 50, 60 yards to the fairway. So we want to have the ball positioned back in our stance, not up here. We want to catch the ball on the downswing so we can get power through here, yet still be able to hold short of this tree we're going to hit on our follow through. As far as our alignment, we want to be set up anywhere out in the fairway. You don't want to be way over to the left because you're going to cut across it and fall right into the tree. So pretty much straight on the alignment. Again, ball is back in the stance. We want to have more of a motion like a bunker shot, more steep decline into the ball so we're hitting down on it so we can stop our follow through. As I said, if we play the ball too far up in our stance, we're going to have to catch it here and come right into the tree. So that, again, the ball is back in your stance. We want to take enough loft to get it up over the grass, be steep with the takeaway, and short on the follow through so we don't hit this tree. It's a real quick short and motion like that.
Negotiating trees is something every golfer will be up against. We can't all be Jim Colbert. Martin's got a solution for what may seem to be an impossible situation.
Well, there you go. It just shows you. If you hit marginal shots, you will get marginal breaks. Craig's been talking about how to deal with a restricted backswing or a restricted follow-through. Well, by gosh, here we've got a restricted stance. This is going to be very hard for me to advance the ball towards the target unless I get really creative. Well, let's see how creative I can be. I could try and stand this way. I think in doing that, I probably couldn't get much leverage, might hurt my left elbow, so I wouldn't want to do that. I could try and stand in front of the tree. I don't like the look of that. I think I could hit myself there, get a penalty for that, so that wouldn't be good. I think the best option to come up with is, we'd call it sort of a backhanded shot. You'd take a lofted club, most lofted one you've got. I'm going to take a sand iron. And the reason I'm going to take a sand iron is that I'm going to play this ball way behind my feet to create some descent here. Now, in doing that, playing the ball way behind me, it takes a lot of loft off the club. If I used a 7 or a 6 iron, I'd actually take so much loft off the club that the ball would go downwards, would knock it into the ground. So here's how we'd play this shot. We'd play the ball from well behind the feet, as I said, pick it up and down with the right hand, right arm, sort of a hammering action. Have some sense of lining up where you feel your back is facing the target. Try and keep the swing pretty smooth here, and let's see what we get. If I could just advance this anywhere near the green, I'd be delighted. I'd take that shot every time, and probably you would too.
The Walrus has had his share of trouble shots on the PGA Tour. Now watch as Craig describes his punch shot, a handy tool to have in your bag of tricks, especially if you want to keep the ball low and on course.
Okay, members, here we've got a situation where we've got a pretty good lie in the rough. We've got to keep the ball under the tree in front of us. It's the only shot we have. We can't go over it because the tree's way too close to us. So we've got to hit a nice low, hard punch shot up to the green. We've got about 155 yards to the green, I guess. The two things we want to do here, we want to take a couple extra clubs because we're going to hit the ball low. It's be a very short, abbreviated swing. I want to keep the ball low under the tree, short of the green, run it up onto the green. So what would normally be a 7-iron shot from here, I'm going to hit a 5-iron. One thing we're going to do, make sure we do not want the ball up in our stance. If we get the ball up in the stance, we're going to catch it on the upswing, going to lift the ball up, we're going to hit the tree. So we want to put the ball, normal position would be approximately right here. We're going to want to move the ball back just inside our right heel, right toe. You have to make sure we hit the ball first. There's not going to be a follow through in this shot, it's just going to be a quick up and down, just as firm and as hard as we can from the top, hitting into the ball, obviously hitting the ball first. Keep it low, drive it under the tree. We want our stance is going to want to be pretty much right at the target, maybe a little open again because we're coming down on such a steep decline, we're going to create a little left to right spin. So we want to open the stance a little bit. The ball will be set back off our right heel, our hands will be in front. There'll be very little weight shift. We want the weight on the left side again because we're just making a one quick motion up and down into the ball.
And now, Martin Hall with another solution for battling on the slopes.
Let's talk about the uphill lie and just how important it is that you have the right setup for this shot. In fact, all of the shots where there is a slope to be contended with, how you set up is critical. Best as we can, we want to change the setup but leave the feel of the swing the same. So let's change our setup for the uphill lie. Let's show you how you do that. The worst thing you could do, members, is to try and drive that ball into the slope. I see that all the time, and gosh, nothing good comes out of that. What we've got to do is place the spine fairly much perpendicular to the slope. Now, if you place the spine perpendicular to the slope, that allows you to swing the club head up the slope. There'll be a feeling of keeping your upper body well behind the ball as you do that. Now, it's very important to understand, if you change the angle of the spine, then what you do is you change what we call the effective loft of the club face. Let me demonstrate with this little model here. If this was the ground and this is a normal angle for the ball to leave the club face at, if I just change the angle of the ground, I think you can see how that changes the angle the ball would leave the club face. So what was a 5-iron now becomes a 7-iron. And what does that mean? Well, I'm actually about 150 yards from the hole here. Normally, I would take a 7-iron for 150 yards. But because of the uphill lie, the setup that I take, and the effective change of loft on the club, I'm going to take my 5-iron. I'm going to add 2 clubs. Now, the swing itself, I'm just going to try and have the club follow the slope. I do not want to hit in the slope. If I have one thought that I feel is key during the swing, is that I stay behind the ball. Keep my upper body behind the ball. So here we go. Spine perpendicular to the slope. Realize that's going to hit the ball much higher. Try and make the club follow the slope. It's going to hit it high. I'm going to stay behind it, and here we go. And I'd certainly take that one each time. So remember, with the uphill lie, it's almost all about setup and stay behind that ball.
Having one of those days when your perfect drive down the middle and long ends up in a divot? Don't kick the ball out of that divot anymore. Craig has the solution for the dreaded divot shot.
Oh, well, members, sometimes in this game we get a little bit unlucky. We've just hit a perfect drive, and unfortunately we've hit it right where somebody hit it before us. So what we have here is a very nasty looking divot. Now there's really only a couple choices we have from this lie. With a hazard in front of the green, we're close enough to the green we want to try to get the ball there. Unfortunately, it's sitting down about a quarter inch underneath the lie of the grass here, so we have to, one thing we have to do, we can't pick it clean like we would have a normal fairway shot. We want to be a little steeper on the backswing because we want to hit down on the ball, creating some left to right spin, getting the ball up in the air, but you have to make sure we hit the ball first. The difference being with the ball on the divot here, we're going to be a lot steeper on our takeaway because we need to be on a steeper angle coming down to make sure we hit the ball first. We don't want to pick the ball up because there's no room to get the club under it behind here since the ball is so low sitting in this divot. You're going to skull it and hit it low, probably in the hazard. So what we're going to do, we're going to position the ball back in our stance because we want to have all the weight on the left side. It's not a weight change. We're not going to make a weight shift on the takeaway. We're going to be all one piece, all our weight on our left side. Take the club away higher, come down steeper, hit the ball first. What that is going to do is going to create a left to right spin. Again, we're going to probably hit a fade out of this lie. 9 times out of 10, the ball is going to go left to right. So we're going to, with our alignment, we're going to want to set up right at the left side of the green. Expect a little fade on the ball. So hands ahead of the ball. We don't want the hands behind the ball because then you're going to dig in here and you come back under it. You're going to get nothing. We want to make sure we just real powerful all the way down our left side, hitting down into the ball first. So alignment will be a little left of the target, hands a little in front of the ball. Ball position, this is a 6-iron. We got about 150 yards. So I'm taking one more club. Ball's a little back in our stance. Say all the weight on my left side, and it's going to be a one-piece up and down swing.
Again, around the mounds with Martin Hall in another On the Slopes.
Ball below the feet. That's a really difficult shot for a lot of the members out there. I see people top the ball a lot when the ball is below the feet. Now, as we've said with all these shots, ball above, ball below, uphill, downhill, the setup is the key. And the key here is to make sure that you bend substantially more from the hips than normal. Then flex your knees a bit more than normal and put the weight on your heels, that's for balance. Now what that will do, what that should do, is give your swing more of a vertical look. And the more vertical the golf swing, the more depth you buy in your downswing. So, we want to be bending forwards more than normal, flexing the knees so the weight's a little on the heels to keep the balance, more vertical swing. These angles must be maintained through the swing. Here we go, this ball will probably slide to the right just a bit. So important to keep the body angles in the golf swing, otherwise you're going to go ahead and top it. So what you need to do is set those angles, keep those angles, and then the ball below your feet won't be a shot that scares you.
One of the scariest shots in golf is the flop shot. Craig calms your fears by making it look easy as he takes you through the do's and don'ts of the flop shot.
Well, members, what we have here is a shot from about 20 yards off the green where we've got a real tight tucked pin on the left side, not much room at all. It's a little downhill going to the pin. So we want to just limit our mistakes from this shot. We could hit a flop shot and try to carry it over this bunker. We have very little room to work with. Or we could come out to the right here and just play a shot out away from the bunker, make sure we don't leave the ball in this bunker, through the rough, and just try to make sure we get it on the green and have a putt for par. Now, if we want to have a little fun and try to hit a flop shot over this bunker, what we're going to do here, we got a pretty good lie in this rough here. So the idea is to get the ball up in the air, carry the bunker, get it high enough so it comes down nice and soft. How do we do that? Well, if we play the ball back in our stance with our hands in front of front of the ball like we've been doing before, what does that do? That closes the club face. So that's not going to work. We're going to hit a low shot, probably catch the bunker. If we happen to carry it over the bunker, it's going to hit and run all the way across the green. So in order to get the ball up in the air, we want to move the ball way up on our left side, almost in front of the stance, open our stance to where our line to the pin is here. We want our feet way over here so we can swing out away from our body and get the ball way up in the air. So we're going to place the ball way up in our stance, open our stance up, open the club face up. Although I have a sand wedge, we want to open it up a little more to get even a little more loft on the shot so we can get it up in the air. Now, the one thing that all you members do, well, not all you members, but most of you do most of the time, you get everything perfect set up for this shot, make your swing, and quit on it. What happens is the ball just goes from here, either in the bunker or you leave it short in the rough. The trick to this shot of getting the ball up in the air is to have a nice high follow through. You have to go ahead and lift the ball up. So as you can see, we play it way up in the stance, open the club face, give a nice high follow through. That'll work.
Hitting off hardpan can be an easy shot, if you know how. Here's Martin Hall with another quick tip for making the hardpan easy.
This is the absolute opposite of the flop shot that Craig was just talking about. When the ball is sitting on hardpan, far from try and lift the ball in the air, what you need to do is feel you're striking down on the golf ball. There's a few things you can do with your setup and one thing you can do with your golf swing to help you do that. With your setup, I like to have my feet aiming a little left of the line. Some people call that an open stance. So I like to sort of open or pull the left foot back, and I like to play the ball back towards my right foot. Now, why do I pull the left foot back? Because that's going to help me to get through the ball. So important in hitting off this hardpan. As I said earlier, the mistake is to try and lift it. That's no good at all. What we want to do is turn through that shot, drive through that shot, feel as if you get your right shoulder over your left foot as soon as you can. Now that's obviously going to hit the ball out pretty low, so let's have a look at that. Ball's back, hands are forward, weight's left. I'm going to try and finish with the right shoulder over the left foot. Well, I'd be very pleased if I could do that every time and finish on the green, and I think you would too.
Sometimes one of the bigger problems with bunkers is stance. Now Craig offers his insight into one of the more awkward stances around a bunker.
Well, this is a shot we've all had before where the ball's sitting out of the bunker, but there's very little room between your ball and the bunker, so you have to stand in the bunker. Your feet are quite a ways, probably a good foot or so below the ball. So we don't have the liberty of taking a normal grip and hitting a chip shot as we normally would. You're going to run into yourself because you're so tight and far below the ball. So what you want to do is get planted pretty firmly in the bunker so you're not going to move. Just dig in. You got to grip way down on the club because you have no room in here to move. Very short path that you're going to take your takeaway and your follow through on here. Again, we got to grip way down on the club, so we're about to a half wedge now. Hands are way in front, so we just want to make a quick little chip shot and lift it up over the bunker onto the fringe here. Again, we don't want any weight shift, so we come back here, we're going to end up coming here and falling over the top of it. So it's just my left hand is probably half on the grip, half on the shaft. Right hand goes on here. You have to push your hands in front of yourself because if you come here, your club's going to catch you in the stomach. Especially as big as I am, it's going to catch you a lot easier. So your right hand is on the shaft, left hand's half on the grip, half on the shaft, hands way in front. Just one quick little motion and chip it on down the hill.
In 1995, hometown hero Craig Stadler returned to Torrey Pines Golf Club, home of the Buick Invitational, to take care of a little unfinished business. Although the San Diego native claimed the Buick Invitational title in 1994, Torrey Pines and Stadler will forever be linked by the infamous towel incident. After building a stance under a tree on the 14th hole in 1989, the Walrus was disqualified after signing an incorrect scorecard, costing him a second-place finish.
I played well on Sunday, and then all of a sudden the hammer comes down, and you're out of the tournament. You're out a bunch of other things combined with it, and 50 grand and whatever else. So,
after discovering the famous tree was racked with disease, a decision was made to bring it down. Craig was more than happy to do the job.
Done.
You've just seen that very famous shot that Craig hit from under the tree in San Diego, where he incurred a 2-stroke penalty for building a stance because he used a towel. Under Rule 13-3, you're not allowed to do that. Now, what Craig could have done, and if you're in this same situation, you should do this, is throw away the towel and use your rain pants. That's okay by the rules of USGA. That does not constitute building a stance. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, that's the first thing you do, put your rain pants on. Second thing you do is realize what needs to happen in this type of swing. Now, because of the angle of the club face, if you're using a lofted club, the ball is going to start well to the left of where you feel you're aiming. We'll talk about that in a little more detail when we talk about ball above the feet. So the ball will start well left of where you're aiming, therefore, you must aim what feels to be substantially to the right. Now, the swing is very rounded to sweep that ball forwards. You don't want to be picking it up and chopping down here. So let's put those two together. We're aiming to the right because the angle will make it go to the left. We're swinging around to sweep that ball away. Here we go. If I could get this anywhere near the green, I'd be quite happy. So let's see what we've got here. Well, I'd be quite happy with that. Right, let's go back to Craig, because he's got a couple more tricky shots around the greens to show you.
A downhill lie over a bunker can be a test of will. Craig has some advice to help you make this tedious tester just another shot.
Well, members, this is somewhere that we don't want to be. But unfortunately, in this game of golf, we're probably going to end up here one time or another. What we have here is we're behind this bunker. We've got a downhill roll to the green to the pin. And as you can see, this is a very, very steep slope. And for the most part, all we want to do with this is try to get it on the green. You want to eliminate your chance of making double or triple and just get it on the green and have hopefully a putt for par and make bogey, or maybe get lucky and make the putt for par. But the first and foremost we want to do is make sure we don't hit it in this bunker. We hit it in this bunker, we're making 6. We still have a very tough shot. It's a lot easier coming back uphill to the pin. So what we want to do here is, as I said, just make sure we get over this bunker. We're going to take a sand wedge, so we want to get a little loft on it so the ball doesn't hit hard and run all the way across the green. You want to choke way down on the club because we want to get real tight, a real short swing, but make sure we got enough power to get it up over that bunker. Because our only goal is to carry this bunker and hopefully get it on the green. Now you want to pretty much get set up here. You're going to hit the ball from the right side, but with the slope so steep as it is, your weight is going to definitely be on your left side because everything's coming downhill. So we want to put this foot and plant it way down here as far as we can. Grip way down on the club, right hand probably down on the shaft. Just make a real quick little pitch out this way, lifting the ball in the air, trying to make sure we hit it hard enough to get it over that bunker. Again, it's just going to be real short, no weight shift at all, obviously, because you're so far down here. If you happen to shift down this way, you're going to end up with a face plant in the bunker, and we don't want to do that. So again, it's going to be just make sure you get planted down here. Be a real short, real quick one-piece swing. Just try to lift it up over the bunker.
You can find a lot of uses for the sand wedge, especially in troubling spots on the golf course. Next, Craig shows you another way to use your sand iron.
All right, what we have here, we have a lot of real soft, loose ground here. Not much grass, it's just real loose, kind of sod, dirt kind of stuff, which eliminates one thing. We can't chip the ball because it's real soft behind the ball. If we catch any of it, the club goes down underneath, the ball goes nowhere. So what we're going to do here, we want to again make sure we get this shot over the bunker, but the only way of getting any spin on it all is hit it just like we would a bunker shot, which means we're going to open our stance, we're going to open the club face up a little bit. Again, steeper on the takeaway, steep on the downswing, come in about a ½ an inch below the ball. We have to get it up in the air, and in order to get away from getting caught in all this loose grass and loose dirt here, what do we have to do? We have to have a high follow through to make sure we get the ball up in the air. Just kind of like the flop shot we discussed earlier, same idea, but a little steeper with a nice high follow through. Again, the stance is way open, the club face is open, hands are in front of the ball. We're going to take it up steep and come down about a ½ inch behind the ball.
And now, Martin Hall with his final tip for playing on the slopes.
Well, last but not least, let's talk about the ball above the feet. Now, there is a benefit to those of you that slice the ball in practicing this way, because most of the time when the ball is above the feet, you'll either get a little bit of hook or a lot of hook. I'll talk about when you get a little and when you get a lot in just a moment. But let's deal with the setup that you need to use to hit with the ball above your feet. When the ball was below your feet, we needed to buy some depth. Now the ball's above your feet, we need to lose some depth to the swing. If we took the normal golf swing, you'd stick the club in the ground way behind the ball. So we need to lose a little depth. How do you do that? You shorten your grip, you stand a little more erect from the spine than normal, and you make the golf swing go around your body a little bit more. Those of you who slice the golf ball, this is a great way to practice. I know that Rick Smith practiced with Lee Jensen this way a lot, and it obviously has helped him with his game. So here we go with the ball above the feet. Spine a little more erect, down the grip, slightly round his swing. Going to get a little bit of hook probably with this. And here we go. And that would be just fine. Now I said some shots you get a little bit of hook, some shots you get a lot of hook. What's the variable there, members? Well, the variable is the loft on your golf club. Very few people know this, and this could be a very good arrow to have in your quiver. Let me show you something. I've taken a 1 iron here. Let's take the 1 iron, put my angle iron on it. Now, if I took a very extreme uphill lie, ball above my feet lie, very extreme, you can see that does point slightly left of target. Not a whole lot. So if I was playing with a 1 iron and the ball above my feet, I would allow for just a little bit of hook. Now here's the thing that I find fascinating about the design of golf equipment. If I took a sand wedge and did the same, if I brought that club up so it was well above my feet, you can see how much difference there is there. The stick appears to be pointing way off to the left, and that's where the ball will go when you use a lofted club with the ball above your feet. Point there. Be very careful when you are standing in a bunker and your ball is perhaps out of the bunker. Be very careful with little chip shots with the ball above your feet, because you need to aim way to the right. Now, I'll demonstrate here with a sand wedge and show you just that. If I took the normal aim, this ball would go way to the left. So I will allow for that by aiming to the right, make the swing, let the loft do its trick, and you can see the ball goes straight. Not straight where I aimed it, but straight